Hi everyone and welcome to another edition of Founders Friday. Today we thought we'll mix it up a little bit. I've got two founders, though of course not of the same company. They're co-founders of two different portfolio companies of ours. I've got Madhumita, who's the co-founder of Indus Valley, and I've got Raksha Kothari, who's the co-founder of Go Desi. The reason we thought we'll mix it up a little bit is that, women founders are always asked whether things are difficult, easy, hard. So it's a little bit of, a little bit of a sisterhood of traveling pants over here a little bit. So my first question to both of you would be, uh, being a startup founder for a woman, is it now mainstream enough or is it still, are you guys or are we all the odd women out?
So I think I would say it's still not mainstream enough. It is still new. I think in my experience or in our circle itself, very few women I know who are startup founders. So it is definitely a path less chosen by women for sure. So yeah, not mainstream enough.
So before I come to you, Madhumita, I just want to pick on that. So what made you choose this life of becoming a co-founder?
I think it was quite interesting as an idea itself, and I love taking risks, and I like choosing things which are a little different from the mainstream. So I think that was my.
I think that's why we get along.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't like mainstream.
Yeah. So even when I joined like the KPMG, my corporate life, I quit because it was not my cup of tea. So I think for me, it is about doing things a little differently. So I think that made me choose, and the entire purpose of Go Desi also aligned with what I wanted to do in life. So yeah, that's where it is.
Madhumita, is
Sure.
it a path less trodden for women to be co-founders or founders?
Actually, even to be at work is still a path less trodden for women. So, for us at Indus Valley, when I started out, I wanted a 50% women in office. And that's something we struggle to do today, especially as you're hiring people more senior up. What we've understood is that in India, there is high enrollment rate when it comes to education. Women do fabulously there. They enter the workforce where they do very well for the first couple of years. But our cultural system doesn't allow them to participate continuously. There is good maternity break that the government offers and the companies do as well. But after that, who takes care of the child? Who decides all of the things at home? Unless that changes culturally, this is not going to change. Going to a job and managing a family is hard enough for most women. Being a founder is like having another kid. So it's not everybody's cup of tea. And I understand why it might be scary to a lot of people.
So what made you, start up? Why didn't you choose the more conventional path of, you had a job, so why didn't you stay with that?
Sure. So for me, it was always about problem solving. I get bored very easily doing the same thing. I'm sure both of you can. I think I like the
I think
drama
we are
of it
three
all.
peas in a pod then.
There's no dull day when you're a founder. That's the good and bad of it. But that you really have this opportunity to build something ground up, and that's very exciting for me.
So did you guys have any role models? Do you think that is lacking for women when they decide, what is the career path that they choose, whether it's a conventional career or to become a founder? Do you think, did you have a role model, a woman role model?
To be really honest, no. But I think growing up, seeing our mothers has been the biggest inspiration, right? How they've handled kids without dad being around for most of the time, and as well as handling the work outside, has been my biggest inspiration. To see women in daily lives, whether they are our moms or even the maid servants or the akkas that we work with, the way they have been handling their family as well as the work outside has been an inspiration. So for me, it's the daily woman thing, yeah.
What about you, Madhumita? Any role models? And do you think there aren't enough role models for women?
I think it's more again the way that we're brought up. For me, I grew up in a house of four headstrong women: my grandmother, my mother, and my sister. My father traveled a lot for work. So I grew up in a world where I didn't perceive my gender was a problem. More gender neutral was the way that I thought about it. So never did I realize that these things could be an issue for others. So to answer your question, for me, it was not personally an issue or anything like that. And I never needed a woman role model, because for me, if a guy can do it, gender is not a particularly an issue. But now I do understand that, probably I should have looked up to some more people in my gender, because it's not as easy. The expectations that are set on women at work and at home, even at work, if you take Archana, if there is an interpersonal issue, somehow I'm supposed to be better at it than my co-founder Jagdish, just because I'm a woman. Not necessarily I have those skills, but a lot of the emotional labor is put on women, both at home and at work. And until those things become a little bit more gender neutral, it is going to be a little challenging. And I do not have role models. I wish I did.
But do you think they're important, or do you think, women should take their own sort of decision, even in the absence of maybe immediate role models? There's a lot of conversations that, when you see somebody like yourself who has been able to get ahead, that helps you in, taking those steps. But I also think, there's always that one woman who will do something which is for the first time ever. So obviously she would have had no role models, so, you hear of these very adventurous, women who really, really broke all, stereotypes whatsoever. So, Amelia Hart, for example, she went flying, solo trip. Is that really important, or does it have to come from within that, how do you look at your choices? Were there other pressures that you both felt over the years? Do you feel investors tend to talk more? Because both of you have male co-founders, so do you find that people automatically assume that they're your bosses? Do those things happen, or... So I'll tell you guys a very funny story. So yesterday, Tarun, me and Varun, the three of us had gone for a meeting. And we were in this meeting and I was doing all the talking. And then, I paused for a bit to say, meet Tarun. And there was this man who said, yeah, he's the founder of Rukum. I'm like, I've been talking all this while, hello.
No, I've had
yeah. I was like, okay, I still have to say it.
Wow. No, I've had a very similar situation. What I did was I was scouting for some vendors. I happened to borrow my cousin's driver because he stayed near to that location. And he was very kind to take me around and all of that. So I took him to a couple of vendor visits. He was in a proper veshti and all that, proper white and white. So the vendor was continuously talking to him, and then I realized that he thought that probably that I am like just the assistant or something. So then I had to establish.
Sometimes was. I think you're the secretary.
I am being kind to myself, calling me an assistant, but then I really understood maybe I'll have to clearly explain, considering the receiver's background. So I'm not taking it for granted that people would assume. So I always explain who I am, making my life less embarrassing.
Yeah, I think similar situations in the beginning, of course, I had to explain, that I also own a part of Go Desi and, we're in it together. But also I think I'm okay to a certain extent not being in the limelight, or if that is what it seems to be that way. I think the work should speak for me. That is more important, and I think I'm dedicated to that more. And I think I'm happy that the co-founder takes care of the investor relations, so I can concentrate on the work bit. But yeah, definitely it is there that sometimes you need to explain yourself out there. And but I think it depends how you choose to take it.
Actually, the investor community is more politically correct, and they're probably used to talking to so many people that they're a little bit more open, and obviously they do their research. The challenge comes when you work with people from the more traditional backgrounds, let it be your manufacturers, packaging partners, people who are not used to having women in the room. But it's just the first couple of conversations, and then they start being kinder to me because they think I'm a woman, but I use it to my advantage.
Yeah. So, Raksha, you've chosen to look after manufacturing, which is again not conventional for
Yes.
a woman co-founder to really take that. How did that come about?
So again, I think being close to the ground, and working with people is my thing. So and I knew that sales and marketing is something that I don't
There's still
want
people
to.
involved over there. You know that, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to come and bite you.
Yeah, but yeah, I think just being very close to the ground and seeing the impact directly is what I really like. So, and this was the best way to be, close to the purpose of Go Desi, and that's why I chose manufacturing. Yeah.
So, Madhumita, when you and Jagdish were thinking about bifurcating your sort of roles, how did you arrive at what you would do and what Jagdish would do in the company?
Sure. So we kind of did a very soft competency mapping of sorts. By competency mapping, I meant, can you really do this, and can you do this day in and day out?
How do you arrive at that?
Yeah.
I'm very curious to know.
So, for example, in order to handle sales, for example, you need to be really on top of your numbers. You need to have the mindset, because especially in online, every hour, every half an hour, every minute counts. And once you've lost, let's say, the 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. and you've done poorly then because your WhatsApp campaigns did not work, you're not going to get it back. You can't make it up by going and talking to a distributor, requesting him to probably focus on certain shops and increase. So there is no scope to fix your errors. But what you can do is fix your mindset and come back with better ideas tomorrow. It's an idea factory in that sense. So it has to do a lot with your mindset. And I felt amongst the both of us, Jagdish had that mindset. And it's being comfortable with some level of failure on a daily basis and still coming back, which he was. In my case, I handle a lot of the internal, very close to you, a lot of operations, a lot of procurement, a lot of people management in the back end. It needs a lot of attention to detail, and it can be very tedious if you're not really into it, because every piece needs a little bit of thought and you need to do it day in and day out. So it might have been a little monotonous for Jagdish. So we took that route and we kind of carved it out. And then there are some teams that we neither of us want. I'm not going to name, but we then divide them equally somehow. So that's how we go about it.
And as your companies have grown, do you find that managing the financial part of the business is more interesting, less interesting, or again, because there's this whole perception that women want to stay away from financial matters. So how do you both see?
So for us, finance is somewhat split between both of us. I manage the cash flow, vendor payments, and all of that. So I think it's a very good indicator of what people are willing to pay for you. And if you do not look at your cash flow on a daily basis, that's a very easy way to go down very quickly. Money really matters, and I think we've figured out again to split it between the both of us as to who's going to do what. It wasn't easy, but I think thanks to MBA and the lack of choice that you have to look at it, it got easier. I don't think it's a gendered thing. It's about you putting in the time and effort.
Yeah, I think same here. Like, I always thought that finance is not my thing and I don't want to play with numbers. But after starting Go Desi and after running it for so many years, I think I'm liking it. I'm actually enjoying the data aspect of it and understanding how the financial aspect actually matters to every part of the business, and it's not just the finance what you really think of from the outside. So
and also, Archana, when we do initiatives, right, like for example, if I'm working on logistics and it used to be X and now it's X minus 2%, that gives you that joy from within, like, yes, all the stuff that I've done has actually worked to contribute towards that.
Yeah.
And you see that change month on month, quarter on quarter. And if you don't see it, then you do not know where it goes.
So, there's a lot of now panels and conversations, and of course, we are also part of that to some extent, where women are now coming, far more frequently. How do you guys think about it? Sometimes I also feel, will that ghettoize, women? Ultimately, the optimum thing is that men and women there's a equal sort of share in how we engage with each other. In different equations and relationships, as in two individuals or four sort of individuals coming together, it's never perfect. I mean, even amongst women, it's, somebody will,
Preferences.
and somebody will be more dominant, somebody is more sort of, willing to let somebody else sort of lead. So how do you guys feel about this, that this whole women panels or this, these women conversations, are they really contributing to taking women forward, or is it ghettoization of women?
I think it's important to build a community for sure. So I am for this, the entire women community, supporting women and having such women panels. Why not? If men can do it, so as women. So I don't see this being anything to sort of put ourselves out there just for the sake of it. But it's natural. It should come naturally. So yeah.
I think till the playground kind of levels out, this is needed, because still there are people who call me the wife. So till it probably reaches that gentleman that I'm not the wife, I'm the co-founder in that particular context. We need to do this. And like you correctly said, I think some people need to see that this is a possibility, so they can also figure if that's something that they want to do. But on the flip side of it, I do understand that by specifically calling it out, it's like save the tigers, right? Should you say save the tigers or should you not? You need to save the tigers, but I think it's a necessary thing in the short term.
Also, what happens is, everybody does this very...
it's like a checkbox.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I'm just wondering, is it really taking things forward, or are we still standing in the same place?
Depends how you see it, I think.
No, let's say just within our ecosystem, are we seeing more women founders? Are we seeing them getting funded? Are we seeing them, do they have more battles to fight than, let's say, male founders? So, like one thing I see a lot, and I've said this on different panels as well, women, either they are solo founders, or invariably it's
couple founders.
Yeah. And the reason is because as women, you don't have a peer set who's willing to take that risk with you, because either they've already dropped out of their careers and are no longer in their careers, or they want a very structured 9 to 5, because the responsibilities at home is entirely on them. So there's no way they're going to take that risk. So I see more women founders, for example, now. But almost everybody has a husband as a co-founder.
Yeah.
And that I feel is not, it's not as if things have gone
forward.
Yeah, in
the way that you would want it.
No, but not the way I would want it, but I would say that, you don't see the reverse with men, right?
Yeah.
More men have their peer set as their co-founders. Typically, it'll be a woman who will have an idea, and then she'll get her husband to join in, and that's how then they move forward, It's never the other way around.
But most businesses in India, away from the startup system, are family-led. It might be siblings, it might be fathers,
sons. Fathers and sons.
It is fathers and sons. So in a way, I see this as very comparable to the family setup, where, because even when we started our first 2 to 3 years, I used to take my mom's help in packaging, my father to help me drive stuff around. So it's your first circle that you rely on. And for women, I think thanks to digital, that circle is changing. We're able to reconnect with people whenever we need to, and we're not reliant on just physical presence. I need not see my friend physically every day, but I can connect with her and be in touch with her, and that way I'm able to form a bond without necessarily seeing her every single time. And I think that has strengthened bonds, let it be within the ecosystem or outside. But specific to the ecosystem, compared to the rest of the world that I interact with on a daily basis, I still feel the VC ecosystem is slightly kinder on this aspect. But one thing it does is it might exclude us from certain conversations that I might not be privy to. So they might have been friends playing tennis together. They might have been gone to the same schools
together. The old boys network is real. Again,
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. So somebody in the Rukum team, met some other VCs, and they said, "Oh yeah, we hang out." So there's a little boys' club that goes out drinking.
Yeah.
But there's no such women's club, and they would not include me, for example, just because of my gender. I hope so. I mean, I hope there's no other reason. But what I'm trying to say is that, again, women don't have that luxury. I mean, most women don't have that luxury, because even if they are working, they still need to go back home. Because the responsibility of the home is with them. Whereas the men are out drinking. So all the other ways that men create networks for themselves are denied to women, or are not available to women.
Yeah, I think it will take some time. It is a long, for sure. Like, as in, it's something that we will still take time to get there, to find these networks and to form this community which is already there with the men, the privileges that they have in general. So, but I think it's getting there. So I'm not a feminist sort of a person, so I don't know if this is right, but I think it's just how you perceive it and how you see it. Like, I think we really have strong bonds, but we just don't talk about it so loudly as, say, maybe men would. So yeah, I think that's, for me, it's about that. Yeah.
You were saying, I mean, I took off from your point. So you were saying that those networks are not the same.
Those networks are not the same, but it does not mean it doesn't exist. For example, after becoming a parent, I'm on so many mom groups, and those moms are not your typical stay-at-home mom. Some of them are, but the rest are. There's like an pediatric oncologist there. So, there are women who are doing things. There are other founders there. So I get to meet people thanks to my daughter. So that's another way you get to meet people. And there are friends and family friends and things like that. You build your network slightly differently. But I've seen historically things that women do are slightly looked down upon. Like a kitty party is not cool, but when men catch up over a couple of drinks, it's considered cooler. So I think we have different networks, and we should start enabling them and absorbing them as well.
Any questions, thoughts you guys want to add to this conversation?
I think we need more. I'm sorry.
No, I would just like to know, did you have role models?
No.
No.
No. But again, I think there was a point at a point when I was still very young. I think I was very, very, very naive, and I wasn't able to make that sort of distinction that there was this whole gender thing happening. So what you saw in men, you assumed that there was no gender divide. So you thought, oh, those are my role models.
Yeah.
And therefore, of course, I can have that same life. One of somebody who's played a very critical role in the feminist movement said this to me, that you become a feminist when you become older. It's a fact. And I was very young when I heard this, but it is true, because when you see the sum total of your life doesn't add up to the same bits that, let's say, your male peer set. And second is, you see how you're being judged for your choices. Or sometimes they may not even have been your choices, but your circumstance, I mean, both things are true, right? Yeah. That's when you begin to realize how sort of insidious the whole sort of differences are. And that's when you become far more vocal in your thinking. But I have to say that, I used to read a lot. I don't read as much. So there are women authors who I used to look up to, but then you also realize that women authors never did as well as male authors. So you realize how insidious it is when you start looking at even the creative fields where it should not matter. So women artists are not paid the same as male artists. Their works may be as culturally important, but they don't fetch the same prices. So when you start examining it at every level, and then you're suddenly, oh my God, you sort of have that sudden moment that, something pops in your head. So I think role models have been few and far in between for sure.
I always think there's growth where there's money. So, how do you see more participation of women specifically in VC or parts of the financial world where they can foster, women founders? And how do you see that growing? Because just in the past 5 years or so, I've seen it improve for sure, but not particularly at your level. I've seen it more at an entry level. So, what is your point of view on that?
So again, I feel that a lot of people will just do this window dressing. So they'll hire somebody at entry level and say, oh, see, we've got women
Representation.
we've got on the investment side, but that's really bullshit. Question is, ultimately, as a GP, basically it matters if you can raise money. That means somebody's backing you with their capital in a blind pool, which is a significant part. So which means somebody's trusted you enough to take decisions of their money on their behalf. And these are, of course, extremely, competent and extremely successful people who are doing that, right? And the reason, again, like if you look at the LP base anywhere in the world, but definitely in India, it's almost entirely men. Right? So again, men know other men. And, one thing I'll say that, like all of us feel a natural ease with our own gender. So obviously men feel a natural sense of ease. And that's been, if you look for sort of patterns, you'll say, men have been more successful. But if they've been only men, then obviously they'll be more successful, right? But, not too many people want to change the world. People want that if the status quo suits them, it's fine. Like, it's not. But I think more women, and again, I say this a lot, I think more women should want to control money and be the decision maker of money, not just earn money. So, earlier, like, I think the entire sort of thrust for women was go out into the workplace and earn your money. But unfortunately, in India, even if you earn your own money, you're not allowed to use that money as you see fit. The family sort of takes control and charge of that, your salary. So it's very, very important to be able to decide. If the day you become the decision maker, whether for the entire house or for yourself or for, as a fund manager, I think that will be a significant progress for women. What do you guys think?
Yes, definitely.
Definitely.
And then back up more women founders.
No, for sure. But, that's like I said, right? I mean, I can understand in a sense that when a male VC sees a woman founder, like, I think empathy is a hugely missing piece in most human beings. Second is, if you're going to just go by a cookie cutter sort of formulaic way of looking at everything, and if one man knows just the right words to say, and women don't speak in the same way that men speak, right? Our language, our way of expressing ourselves is different. So the guy sitting in front is going to judge you by his yardstick, not your yardstick.
Yeah.
And that's how, so many women don't get funding also.
I have a question, Archana. It's a very hypothetical one. All things being same, if you were a doppelganger of yourself and a man, would you think you would have done better?
100%.
Okay.
100%. Yeah. Because, like I said, I think women do dissipate a lot of their energy just to overcome some biases, both obvious and hidden. And then also,
you don't realize that.
You don't realize it, and I'll tell you, to this point, first of all, the VC, being a VC itself is a very new option in India. But you look at finance, and which is why I asked that question. I cannot think of too many women, and I'm talking about anecdotally, like amongst us, educated, So like Indian parents, the middle class Indian parents got to the point where, okay, women, their daughters also had to get a good degree and everything. But when it came to money, it's always father, brother, husband. It's not so mysterious. If you're earning it, you should know what to do with it. Even if you're burning the bloody thing, it's your decision. And as long as you have the confidence to make that decision, that's the important thing. This fear that, oh my God, I'll take a wrong decision. Oh my God, how will I go buy a property? just the way a man does, you know. So, like, you know, once I was looking for a house, I remember, and I used to go to Noida and Gurgaon. It was amazing. There were no women brokers, and there were almost no women around. So people who would come to see, so you know, you'd see lots of
Only
other
men.
people. Yeah, everything would be men, including the sellers. So everything, and I was like, there's so many women earning. So which tells you that decisions like house buying, which is a big decision in an Indian household, is done by men. You know, and that's worrying. I mean, you want, at least it should be both the man and the woman should have been together,
Yeah.
even if not a woman alone. So I think there are certain things, when you start getting into it, you realize suddenly that, you know, you're in a minority of one. Yeah, it's a minority of one, but at the same time, you know, you can't stop and say, till it gets better, I won't do anything, you know. So,
One step at a time.
and you got to take your steps.
Yes.
Of those who have that access, the ability, I would say, I think there are people have very hard lives, and it's not the same answer for everybody.
Yeah.
But if you do, I think then you've got to take that first step at least. You should take. What do you say, Madhumita?
100%.
Completely agree on this.
So, on that very happy note, we are going to wrap up this edition of Founders Friday.